The metallic clang of the door echoed through the cavernous workshop, signaling the arrival of something that would change the world forever. In the center of the room, a battered old garbage truck sat under a dim light, its surface pocked with dents and scratches. The team of engineers, eyes tired from sleepless nights, gathered around it, murmuring in disbelief. They had poured every ounce of their knowledge and passion into this contraption, but no one, not even them, could have foreseen what would happen next. The room fell silent as the truck powered up, its engine sputtering to life with a growl that vibrated through the walls. A simple press of a button, and suddenly its transformation began. The once ordinary, discarded metal of the truck began shifting and reshaping, gears whirring as sleek armored plates slid into place, and an array of weapons emerged from hidden compartments. The team exchanged glances, some with wide eyes, others with incredulity, yet all of them were stunned. This was no longer a waste of resources. It was the ultimate weapon. "Did we just create a war machine?" one of them asked, his voice tinged with awe and fear. On the monitor in front of them, the words Project Reclamation, full activation, flashed in bright green letters, marking the culmination of years of relentless work. No one had believed in the vision of the eccentric inventor who had proposed turning trash into triumph. They had laughed, dismissed it as an absurd idea. But now, the world would see the power of their creation, a weapon crafted from the very materials deemed useless by society, a symbol of innovation and defiance. But little did they know, the ramifications of their success would extend far beyond their small workshop. What had started as an experiment to create something sustainable, something that could change the way people saw waste, had become the thing that could shift the balance of power on the planet. And as the truck's engines roared louder, the team realized with dawning horror that they had unleashed a force that no one, least of all them, was prepared for. The future would never be the same. In a world on the brink of collapse, resources were scarce, and the divide between the wealthy elite and struggling masses had reached a breaking point. Cities, once vibrant and full of life, had become sprawling wastelands of waste. Landfills stacked higher than skyscrapers, overflowing with the remnants of a society obsessed with excess. Technology had advanced at a blistering pace, but its benefits had largely been hoarded by those in power. The rest of the population was left to scavenge, fighting to survive among the mountains of discarded materials. It was in this harsh reality that the team of engineers, led by the brilliant but misunderstood inventor, began their improbable quest. Desperate to find a solution to the growing environmental and societal crises, they envisioned a way to turn the very garbage that choked the earth into something of immense power. The world had laughed at them, dismissing their plans as delusional. But now, standing before the transformed war machine, their creation promised something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. As whispers of their invention spread, the stakes grew higher. Global superpowers, threatened by the implications of a weapon born from the very filth they had ignored, began to take notice. Nations that had once enjoyed their comfortable dominance now feared that this new force, this weapon forged from the discarded, would upset the balance of power. A race had begun, not just for control of the weapon, but for control of the future itself. The engineers had unwittingly set into motion a chain of events that could reshape the world, and not everyone was prepared to let them succeed. It started with a single, unexpected incident, a test gone awry. The engineers, eager to showcase their creation to potential investors and government officials, had decided to demonstrate the capabilities of the new weapon in a controlled environment. What should have been a simple simulation turned into a chaotic nightmare, as a truck, now an imposing, sleek military vehicle, shifted into combat mode, its automated targeting system engaged. A malfunction triggered a chain reaction, and within seconds, the truck launched a salvo of missiles, obliterating everything in its path. What was intended as a harmless display of power became an unintentional act of destruction, leaving the test site in ruins and sending shockwaves through the military and political leaders watching from the sidelines. The world's eyes were now on the engineers, and the fallout was immediate. Governments that had once dismissed the project as a novelty were suddenly gripped by fear. News outlets ran headlines warning of an unstoppable weapon made from the discarded. Meanwhile, shadowy groups with their own agendas, terrorists, rogue states, and even corporations, began to mobilize, seeking to steal the technology or sabotage its creators. The once innocent vision of creating something revolutionary from waste had turned into a race for power, with dark forces closing in on both the engineers and their invention. On the other side, the engineers themselves began to feel the weight of their creation. They had never intended for the weapon to be used in war, yet their success had put them at the heart of a conflict they never saw coming. Paranoia set in as they realized they were no longer just innovators, they were targets. Their fight for survival had just begun. Event 1, the Global Summit. Situation: the world's most influential leaders gathered for an emergency summit to address rising tensions between the superpowers. The topic of the day: new weaponry capable of destabilizing entire nations. The engineers were invited, under strict conditions, to present their Project Reclamation, convinced by diplomats that their innovation could be harnessed for peace. Innocuous entry. The engineers arrived, ready to showcase their work. They presented the concept of a weapon made from recyclable materials, emphasizing the ecological and economic benefits. It seemed like a miracle solution to the world's resource crisis, a tool for peace, not war. The demonstration went smoothly at first. The truck moved with precision, displaying its ability to navigate difficult terrain. Unexpected catastrophic result. During the demonstration, a faulty signal caused the truck to mistake a nearby military convoy for an enemy threat. Without warning, the truck launched an automatic strike, missiles tearing through the air with precision, targeting the convoy before the engineers could intervene. Panic erupted as the leaders ducked for cover, and the entire venue was thrown into chaos. A display intended to show peace had, in a split second, incited a global incident. Reactions: the global leaders were stunned. In the blink of an eye, a demonstration of technological progress had escalated into what could only be described as an act of war. National security officials scrambled to reassess their positions. The engineers, horrified at what had just happened, found themselves accused of triggering an international crisis. The audience was divided. Some saw the incident as proof that the technology was too dangerous to exist, while others believed it could be controlled and used as leverage for political power. The stakes were now much higher. What was once a symbol of innovation had become the catalyst for a potential global conflict. As the global situation escalated, various factions scrambled to either control or neutralize the unexpected threat posed by the engineer's weapon. Despite their best efforts, each group's strategies to deal with the chaos often backfired in spectacularly unexpected ways. The global powers strategy: containment. The world's superpowers, initially united in condemning the technology, sought to seize control of the engineers and their invention. Military forces were dispatched to apprehend the creators and confiscate the weapon. The strategy was simple: take the weapon out of the equation before it could be used against them. But the engineers, now aware of the intense danger they were in, had anticipated this. They had hidden the weapon's most dangerous capabilities in a series of encrypted backups, scattered across different locations around the globe. Every time one facility was captured, another backup sprang to life, and with it, more of the weapon's destructive potential. Their attempt at containment only allowed the engineers to gain more time to perfect their technology, inadvertently turning them into fugitives rather than criminals. Corporate strategy: co-opt and control. Meanwhile, major corporations that had initially ridiculed the engineers began a more insidious approach: co-option. They infiltrated the engineers' network, offering deals of safety and funding in exchange for control over the weapon. At first, it seemed like a perfect solution for the engineers: security in exchange for the promise of continued innovation. However, as these corporations gained access to the technology, they began modifying it to suit their own profit-driven goals. But the more they tinkered with it, the more unstable the weapon became. What was once a weapon of calculated precision became unpredictable, often malfunctioning in ways that harmed the corporations themselves. The engineers watched helplessly as their own creation became a tool for destruction, the corporate giants too consumed by greed to realize that they were creating a monster. The rebel faction strategy, sabotage. On the fringes, various rebel factions saw the invention as a means to destabilize the global power structure. They began to sabotage the engineers' efforts, hoping to take control of the weapon and turn it against the elites. However, they underestimated the complexity of the machine. Each attempt to infiltrate the engineers' hideouts or disable the technology only triggered new layers of defense, making the weapon harder to tamper with and more dangerous to approach. In the end, every strategy, whether containment, co-option, or sabotage, seemed to only escalate the situation. The weapon, designed as a symbol of hope, had become an uncontrollable force, drawing in every faction's worst impulses and leading the world closer to catastrophe. Human behavior in diplomacy is a delicate dance, one that is often steeped in subtext, hidden agendas, and unspoken threats. The engineers, once idealistic in their vision, quickly found themselves caught in the web of this intricate psychological game. At first, their project was welcomed with praise for its ingenuity, but beneath the surface, the true motivations of the global powers and corporate giants began to emerge. When diplomats said, "We're eager to see your work," they didn't mean eager at all. Their smiles were carefully constructed, their words meticulously chosen. What they really meant was, "We're calculating the value of this weapon and how we can use it to secure our dominance." The engineers, naive and focused on their creation, misread these cues, assuming good faith where there was none. They believed their invention was a solution to global problems, not a bargaining chip in a power struggle. Behind every handshake was a veiled threat. The superpowers, quick to promise peace, had no intention of letting the technology slip from their control. "You've created something remarkable," one diplomat might say, but their eyes were already scanning for weaknesses, looking for ways to exploit the engineer's desperation or fear. "We're happy to fund your future work," another might offer, but the real motive was to gain ownership of the weapon's secrets, knowing that once in their hands, the engineers would have little leverage. The corporations, with their polished corporate language and offers of protection, were no different. They spoke in the language of opportunity, cloaking their true aims in promises of wealth and security. But underneath, their goal was clear: profit at any cost. The engineers were pawns in a game they couldn't yet comprehend. The deeper the engineers delved into the world of diplomacy, the more they realized that every word, every gesture, was a weapon in itself. And they had underestimated just how ruthless humans could be when their survival was at stake. The galactic response to the human weapon was swift and varied, each species and organization approaching the human problem with their own methods, influenced by their unique cultures and priorities. The Zakari collective, a hive-minded species known for their cold, calculating pragmatism, adopted a strict policy of non-engagement with humanity. They issued a blanket ban on all human technological exchanges, citing the unpredictability of human inventions as a direct threat to galactic stability. However, this strategy backfired when a human envoy, unaware of the ban, sent over a shipment of recyclable materials intended as a peace offering. Inside the shipment, they had included an automated communication device. The Zakari saw this as an unintended breach of their ban and scrambled to decipher the alien technology. This unintentional exchange led to them inadvertently gaining access to human weapon schematics, something they hadn't planned on. The Velshar Coalition, a group of diplomatic intermediaries, took a more conciliatory approach, hoping to neutralize the threat through negotiation. They invited human representatives to a series of peaceful talks, aiming to broker a galactic-wide agreement on the control of the weapon. But the human diplomats, unwilling to reveal the true extent of the weapon's power, instead oversold the idea of it being a green, sustainable military solution. The Velshar, intrigued by the economic potential, quickly realized that the weapon could be leveraged for their own political leverage, though it wasn't long before their initial optimism turned into a deep concern over the chaotic power humanity might unleash. Meanwhile, the Ka-3, a species of intergalactic traders, saw the human weapon as a potential commodity. They began discreetly reaching out to governments and private buyers across the galaxy, trying to acquire the weapon's blueprint before any diplomatic resolutions could be made. Their goal was simple: to profit from humanity's ingenuity, no matter the consequences. In the face of this growing galactic tension, the universe watched, torn between curiosity, fear, and the greed that had always driven its dealings with humanity. It all came to a head during the Galactic Peace Accord, a summit intended to resolve the growing tension surrounding humanity's new weapon. Representatives from across the universe had gathered, including the Zakari, the Velshar, and even the Ka-3, all with one goal: to prevent humanity from turning their weapon into a galactic disaster. The room was thick with tension, the air practically crackling as each faction maneuvered for leverage. At the center of it all was the human delegation, who had been led to believe that they were about to make a historic peace agreement. The engineers, still reeling from the chaos their creation had caused, had hoped that the talks could lead to a compromise. But none of them had anticipated what would happen next. The humans, in an attempt to ease the tension and prove their commitment to peace, presented the ultimate gesture, a grand display of unity. They unveiled a newly modified version of the weapon, now branded as a peacekeeping machine designed to protect rather than destroy. The moment they triggered it, the weapon shifted and reformed, projecting holographic images of peaceful landscapes, serene oceans, and gentle wildlife. It was a surreal spectacle, meant to symbolize the harmony humanity sought to create. But the unanticipated effect was catastrophic. The Zakari, ever sensitive to threats, mistook the peaceful imagery for a subversive attempt to lull them into a false sense of security. They activated their defense protocols, and within seconds, the entire peace summit turned into a war zone. The weapon's holographic images turned into blinding flashes of light, and the meeting hall was filled with chaos. Diplomatic representatives scrambled for cover, and within moments, the entire room was on the brink of all-out conflict. The result was clear. Humanity's attempt at diplomacy had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. What had been meant as a symbol of peace became the spark that ignited an intergalactic crisis. The universe was left wondering, had humanity truly misunderstood the nature of diplomacy, or was it something far worse? Their weapon was simply too powerful to control? In the aftermath of the Galactic Peace Accord debacle, humanity was left in a precarious position. The weapon, intended to be a force for good, had proven far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The delicate balance of power in the galaxy had been irrevocably shattered, and now the human race stood at the crossroads of extinction or domination. What had begun as a visionary attempt to turn waste into a triumph had ended in chaos and fear, with humanity's own creation turning against them. The universe, once hopeful that humans might bring something new to the table, now viewed them with a mixture of suspicion and trepidation. Diplomacy, they realized, could never be the same again. The lesson was clear. When a species capable of such ingenuity and destruction puts its faith in a weapon forged from its own refuse, it risks becoming the very thing it sought to protect itself from. As the galaxy watched from the sidelines, one question echoed through the cosmos. The galaxy might survive their diplomacy, but can you? Humanity had created a weapon no one saw coming. But now, the true battle would be for its soul. Would they learn from their mistakes, or would they become the very disaster they had feared? The future, it seemed, was theirs to shape, if they could control the chaos they had unleashed.